we continue to explore the changes and innovations that will shape the upcoming world. Don't miss the next chapters. Goodbye to roads. In the year 3500 BC, man discovered the wheel, and thus, the movement of objects and people evolved in a dramatic way. The wheel was applied in many ways, including its use for war purposes. Armies with carriages, later with cannons, catapults and carts to carry food, water, gunpowder and ammunition, set the tone for many conquests. It was not until 1886 when Carl Benz invented the automobile, giving another strong boost to the movement of people and goods. All these inventions set the tone for building the infrastructure that would serve as a means of communication between the peoples of the earth, using increasingly faster and more sophisticated vehicles. The existence of borders and the costs associated with the use of the communication and transportation infrastructure has created enormous inefficiencies that consume hundreds of billions of dollars in all countries of the world. Not to mention the endless man-hours lost, the waste of fuel, the loss of perishable goods, the rampant corruption associated with the creation and maintenance of roads, and many other problems. Well, the means of transporting goods, like the transport of people that we already mentioned in the previous chapter, will face an unprecedented revolution with the application of black energy. Goods will be transported in modern trains or convoys that will be levitated by bubbles with zero gravity, created with black energy. Containers will be moved as if they were in water, weightless, frictionless. Fuels that pollute the planet will be a thing of the past. Transport in the ocean by boat will be relegated. Roads will no longer be necessary. Ports and docks will be the same. Drivers will no longer be the operators of transport. Travel will be carried out by programmed robots that will control the new air routes. Zero-gravity trains operated by robots will take the place of all these elements. By the way, the theft of fuel and/or goods will of course be totally eradicated. Man will stop doing all these tasks that will no longer have value, but will never be replaced by robots. Humans will continue to be the main agent of change, but it is a fact that these roads traveled by bubbles with zero gravity will open the door to the future of the transport of goods. Goodbye to roads, ports and trains. Neuronal education. Currently, the man who has the economic resources and/or support to achieve it invests a third or a quarter of his life in the education process. Not to mention if the graduate decides to invest time in studying a master's degree, some specialty and/or a doctorate. There are some careers, such as that of medicine, in which the professional invests almost half of his life to be able to practice his profession and/or specialty. In the upcoming world, humanity will take another quantum leap to develop advanced learning methods. It will no longer be necessary to spend many years to acquire mathematical, physical, chemical, administrative, legal, medical knowledge, and in itself all the disciplines of human knowledge, because the learning process will be radically different. Likewise, knowledge of different languages will no longer be an obstacle. There will be only one language with which the human race will communicate, regardless of its geographic location, origin, genetic background, etc. The savings generated due to the minimal investment of time required to graduate a new engineer will give a great opportunity to the new generations to be useful in the universe. The key to this profound change is neuronal education. The human brain will be the receiver of knowledge through knowledge helmets. The central computer that will control this new process will be located in the ulterior space. The helmets will not be used indiscriminately, but will be assigned according to the demand for knowledge. That is to say, if we need 5,000 engineers, the same number of human beings, women and men, will be programmed and will receive this knowledge via the knowledge helmets assigned to that specialty. This will be the way in which babies and children will be educated in the knowledge, use and practice of the new universal language. From 12 months of age, babies will receive learning sessions through knowledge helmets appropriate for their age. Therefore, it will no longer be necessary to take children to school. Humanity will undergo a profound transformation. Knowledge will be transmitted to selected people in neuronal form. Human beings will have knowledge, capacities, and skills that are impossible to imagine today, but it is a fact that these changes are still very close to occurring. Goodbye to cell phones. Since the first years of man's appearance on the face of the earth, the ways of communication between them were finding forms and expressions that allowed them to live in community and work as a team. First, they needed to have direct communication, face-to-face, for which they used signals and guttural sounds, until they were able to articulate the first words or phonemes, and many years later, be able to integrate a language. It is estimated that man began to communicate with each other approximately 50,000 years ago. However, the first vestiges of written expressions of human beings date back approximately 7,000 years. Although personal communication was a long process and evolution of human capacities, communication at a distance was a greater challenge. Primitively, drums and smoke signals were used to communicate at a distance, either to warn of the presence of enemies or of the occurrence of some important event. It was in 1829 when Joseph Henry contributed the invention of the telegraph as the first effective means of remote communication. In 1854, the second invention that revolutionized communication arose and was patented by the Italian Antonio Meucci. However, it was the British Alexander Graham Bell in 1874 who gave formal use and recognition to this revolutionary device that was the wired telephone. Only in 1973, Martin Cooper, director of the Motorola company, made the first call from a wireless device. This was the origin of cellular telephony. Nowadays, the advances have been significant, since with the advent of the Internet in 1969 and the appearance of mobile applications that have revolutionized long-distance communication between people, not only has it become possible to communicate voice and images in real time from and to any part of the world without having to incur costs for the use of long distance. But this technology has created the basis for the advent of the new communication that will be neurosensory in holographic form. In the next wave of changes, cell phones and mobile devices will disappear to give way to the projection of holograms that will be emitted from a kind of wristwatch or communication boxes that will be present in homes and offices or meeting places. Audio will be received by brainwaves. Hearing aids will no longer be necessary. Human beings will develop the ability to communicate by means of brainwaves, which can be interconnected with hologram projections. Communication between people through the projection of holograms can also be handled in multiple ways. You can have a room with 20 people located on 3 continents, all sitting there with you as if they were real, when in reality, they can all be interconnected remotely. An additional experience is when you have pentasensory reality devices, which can add a more personal touch, as we could say, the intimate encounter of a couple. Remote transmission of smells, touch and taste will be a reality. We will say goodbye to cell phones and welcome the new devices that will no longer have a keyboard and screen, but will communicate with the human being in a neuronal way. They are coming soon. Atomic computer. In 1938, the German Konrad Zuse invented the first computer on the face of the earth. Although these computers have evolved very quickly in their way of interacting with humans through peripheral equipment, networks, different languages, and advanced tools, including artificial intelligence, the principle on which they were designed remains the same, and is the ability to execute operations based on the binary system. Although the appearance of the quantum computer that can carry out operations and data processing at an unprecedented speed is already a reality, in the coming years, humanity will be able to enjoy a real watershed with the advent of the atomic computer, which will work on completely different principles. The atomic computer differs from existing technologies because it will work based on the structure and cosmic interaction of an atom. An atom has the properties of a chemical element. Its structure is based on three components: protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons and neutrons are called nucleons. Protons and neutrons are not elementary particles, they are composed of quarks. Unlike the existing computation based on zeros and ones, the atomic computer has the capacity to model very complex structures and compositions of 1, 2, 3, and even 6 dimensions that will allow humans to accelerate things such as artificial intelligence, the development of holographic technology, the magnitude and speed of computing, the development of new memory technology, the development of new educational neural systems, ribonucleic programming, the solution to problems of the human genome and its interaction with stem cells, the understanding and interaction with the different six-dimensional mathematical models that make up the structure of any organism, including the human body. Its capacity will be very close to that of the brain. However, there are human areas that not even the most advanced science will be able to decipher, at least with this type of technology, such as love. The atomic computer will not be able to provide humans with the skills to communicate with the brain and move objects with the mind. However, humans will be able to develop this knowledge based on practice, trial and error. Once man solves the foundations of the architecture of the atomic computer, he will be closer to discovering new values that are universal. The large technological companies that seem invincible today will be wiped off the map with very few exceptions. That will be those who contribute to the discovery and use of the new atomic technology. This new technology will be the basis to accompany the new discoveries that we have seen in this video. It will be the tool that facilitates the transcendence of the human mind and the consciousness of the being, which will be preserved in digital media, where the variable time will be flexible and controlled by a new concept that we can call digital immortality. Well, friends, we've reached the end of this odyssey. Thank you very much for your attention. These stories are contained and described in greater detail in an entertaining novel called The Upcoming World. We invite you to read it. The final part of this book outlines some additional ideas that refer to the existence of living beings in other parts of the universe. The book also gives us hope by stating that humanity will not be exterminated, but describes that a great tribulation is coming. Fantasy or reality? We hope this vision leads us to reflect on the unfinished business for many of us, because only through human creativity and hard work will we achieve it. We invite you to read The Upcoming World, available on Amazon. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Значит,